Welcome to Victorious Living. Are you ready to unlock your full potential and experience the abundant life God has planned for you? We all face challenges, but on Victorious Living, we will equip you with practical tools and inspiring stories to help you live a life of victory. Let's prepare ourselves to learn something new today. Before we jump in, let's spread the victory. Share this video with someone who needs a fresh perspective. You were created for greatness. Let's dive in and discover how to live a life of victory.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to Victorious Living. And I'm so grateful today that finally God has answered my prayer. I was waiting for a very, very special guest to come to our show, and she is here today. But before that, I want to really thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for taking our time to listen to what God has to say. If you do not know who God is and you're accidentally seeing us today, seeing the broadcast today, I want to tell you that it's not by chance. It's by design. Hold on to another 20 minutes. Your life may change because I believe one word from heaven can change your life. Before I move further and invite my friend today to talk to us, I want to read a letter from one of our supporters. She has written this on 24/10/24, that is 24th of October. What a beautiful date. And she's one of our supporter and donor. I want to tell you that you make a huge difference when you support. And whenever I see her letter and the support that she sends, I want to take this moment to just thank her. And I would not mention the name. And I want to really, really bless. And she says that here is a check for you for all that you do. So I really thank you, Mama Ruth, for supporting us. And before I move ahead, I want to remind you that no matter what you have gone through, Hebrew chapter 8 verse 12 says, I will demonstrate my mercy to them and will forgive their evil deeds and never remember again their sins. I'm reading from Passion Translation, and in other translation says that I will not remember your sin anymore. Right? So this is your day, no matter what you have gone through. Another couple of moments, what you're going to hear can change your life forever. Without spending any more time, let me welcome my friend Annie. Thank you so much for coming to our show.
You're welcome.
And I have waited for you for months for you to come. So I'm sure that today something great is about to happen. Somebody's life is going to change. And now it's your show. Feel free to talk to us, talk to our audience. And you've been here on this channel for last 5 years. So great. You already have experience about what to do. So without taking any further delay, let's hear from you. How did you get saved?
Oh, I love Jesus, first of all, just to make that clear to everyone that's listening, because it's weird, because when you're a little girl like I was, I didn't know I was getting saved, because God, I feel like, has always been in my life to a certain extent, but I actually figured out, which a lot of people don't know this, is you're going to be the first to hear what I'm about to tell you right now, is the fact that when I was little, I thought it was Sunday school when I went to Sunday school to get saved. But no, I remember my dad and my mom saying, we're going to watch this program and it's going to be a famous singer. And it happened to be Johnny Cash. And he was singing. And he's got his guitar and he sounds so good. The next thing you know, here comes Billy Graham. And they're doing this big show. And they're in this wonderful baseball field. There's probably 50,000 people coming to see Johnny Cash play. And Billy Graham's there preaching. And he starts preaching. And he says to the camera, and many of you watching right now, and you need to get saved, and Jesus is knocking at your door, and he's waiting for you to answer. And I was like, oh. And I listened to him because I'm like, he's knocking on my door. I felt like literally that was my door. And he's knocking on my heart to say hello. But that he sees everything I do, because that's what Billy Graham said, everything I do behind closed doors, my good deeds and my bad deeds and how I'm thinking. And I surrendered that day. And I think I was maybe 3.5, 4 years old.
Wow.
And I understood that I was surrendering to Jesus.
Wow.
And I said the prayer. I went up to my bedroom, and I barely remember this part, but I remember in my pillow, laying my head down and asking Jesus to come into my heart, like the man said on television.
Wow.
So whenever I hear his voice, it brings me way back. And I love Billy Graham. I wanted to meet him before he died. Then he died, and I was so sad. But he was part of my life. It's weird because TV can create such influence, and we don't even know. Just like for your listeners and watchers today, what can change a person's heart? And remember, Billy Graham brought a famous blues jazz rock star on his show to bring those people. I don't know who else was there, but I think they had some other famous musicians. My dad loved music, so trust me, he watched it to see Johnny Cash, but because he also had deep in his heart a desire to see us children come to the Lord. And again, my daddy wasn't perfect, and that was the whole reason why I have what I do for a living now, is because of my father. I'm not blaming him, but I honor my father's memory, because if I never would have gotten mistreated, I never would have known Jesus as much as I do now.
You're very, very beautiful, let me tell you.
Thank you.
But
you are too.
Thanks. But you had a very hard life, and most of us, the people who are watching, they don't know anything about you. So introduce yourself, what you do now, and tell us how the transition happened from the difficult background where you are today.
So people probably watching and listening right now are thinking, well, good, she got saved. Good for her. Clap her hands. Now everything's going to be fine. No, it's not going to be fine, because as a child, your thinking is just not like an adult, obviously, right? And then your brain cells, they don't develop until you're about 25 to 26. You get the maximum amount of millions and billions of cells in your brain. So therefore, we're a child. We have childlike faith. But as a child, I was being abused by my father, and he was abusing my mother, verbal, physical, and mental abuse. A lot of gaslighting, which I didn't even know what that meant a couple years ago. And I look back now, I'm like, my dad was a professional, narcissistic gaslighter and a physical abuser. Bless my dad's soul. My dad, at the last 10 years of his life, totally changed his life and kind of turned around, especially the last 2 years. But my daddy was, like I said, abusing my mother. And so I was born into a family of abuse. My dad was a former alcoholic. He had gotten clean when I was probably about 3, but that didn't mean the trauma and the pain of his past went away. He never really got his healing. He went to AA for a year. He went away to a 30-day program. He got sober, and then he did a whole year of AA meetings, which I think they were weekly or a couple times a week back then. And nowadays, you can find a meeting every day if you're afraid you're going to use or you're going to drink again, which is great. But back then, it wasn't as prevalent. And AA was a little bit a newer type of thing to be. And if you ever went to an AA meeting back in the 70s, where I'm from, that was shameful. You don't walk into an AA meeting just without looking around trying to hide who you are. That's like you're an addict. So you should be ashamed of yourself, Anu. Shame on you for drinking, Anu, right? I'm just making up things. But so my daddy never really talked about his problem. He just said drinking's bad. He abused my mother. He abused his children. And suffice to say, post-traumatic stress disorder was already kind of part of my daily routine, even though I didn't know what that was. But I had complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which there's kind of a difference with that. It's a major difference. And when you have post-traumatic stress disorder, it could be from like a major event in your life, like maybe your parent died or your best friend or your pet died, or you got in a car accident. Maybe you were experiencing an earthquake, just a life-shattering event that shakes you, and shakes your faith. But when it happens every day and you're getting abused every day and you can't escape. So I can compare this to a prisoner of war, an abused child that can't leave the foster parent, or they can't leave their parents.
Yes.
Or someone that's a runaway. They're experiencing flight, fight, freeze, and fawn every single day. I was afraid of my father, and I didn't know what it was. I had nightmares as a little girl. I used to hide under my bed, And I was always struggling to just survive and just be. And I was very shy as a little girl. So I came into our schools. I moved to 7 different schools growing up. I was always very shy. And except for the last high school I went to when I was 16, I had already gotten raped by a classmate, which was actually 4 years older than me, when I think I was 12 or 13. But before that, I got molested by a neighbor when I was 8, 9 years old. And I never told my parents. So that's going on. My dad's being horribly mean to my mother and us children. And just basically, whenever he came home from work, everybody was afraid of him. You walk around on eggshells, screaming, throwing things, hitting, punching, kicking, yelling. That's not a good atmosphere for a child.
Right.
Nobody can really fathom what that is unless you've had that experience yourself, full time. So I consider myself back then a full-time complex trauma student because that's what was happening to me. And so I took that trauma with me, and I remember always wanting to run away, wanted to get away from my father. I felt he was, strict, abusive, mean. I just wanted to get away from him. So when I got out of high school, I moved away the very next day. And I had already got, like I said, molested at 8 and 9, raped when I was 14, molested when I was 12 and 13 by another boy in 4 or 5 grades ahead of me. And then like when I was a teenager, I got raped. And it kept happening. I just kept being in positions where I was at a party and people were drinking, and I would wake up and I would be like, where am I at? And I would have a boy on top of me. Or I would wake up the next day, passed out in a car and sore. I don't need to say where, but what's happening? What's going on? And, no one ever had a nickname for me in school. I wasn't considered a slut or anything, but in our high school, it was cool to have sex. It was something that you did. And if you did the right, it's called the rite of passage. If you did it, all my girlfriends would congratulate you. So that was something that didn't make sense, but it made sense.
Which year it was?
Oh, gosh.
Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you were blessed by this message. Let's use this encouragement to spread hope and light, not only in our own lives, but also in our families and communities. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment and let us know how God is working in your lives. Stay victorious and be blessed.